Welcome to The Culture. We rest at the pulse of the community, providing all things news, music, fashion, events, and everything that we talk about in between. It's a lifestyle. We are The Culture. And welcome to The Culture. I'm your host, Jessica Garrett Modkins, and joining me today is a friend to the show. It is Vice Chair Dr. Steve Gallen for the Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
Once again, it's a pleasure to be on The Culture. I want to continue to commend you and congratulate you for the success of the show, and really thank you for providing a platform for salient discussions, not only around education and COVID-19, but in looking at the various topics that are relevant, that are salient, and that are critically important to our community. So again, salute to you and your team, and I'm glad to be here once again.
Well, thank you so much for that. And we are happy that you're here on the show. As we know, Miami-Dade County Public Schools is coming to a close. And one of the last times you were here, we briefly discussed 2020 graduating, that graduating high school class of 2020. And there were several virtual celebrations going on. You had Obama giving commencement speeches, I believe Oprah, even LeBron James. But what I noticed was you, Dr. Gallen. You gave several different commencement speeches. Exactly what was it that you wanted those seniors to take away from the words of wisdom that you embarked upon them?
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, and congratulations to all of our graduates at the high school level, at the collegiate level. Just congratulations all around. What the Miami-Dade County Public Schools committed to doing was to ensuring that our students had a virtual commencement ceremony and related activity. As a part of that particular process, the principals, the senior leaders, the board members were provided an opportunity to deliver their remarks as we would during a normal graduation ceremony. Having been a high school principal for 7 years, each year there was a different message that I wanted to deliver. The reason that it was different is because the graduating membership was different. So I had to tell a story to each of those particular members of that class. So 7 different classes, 7 different messages, 7 different speeches. I followed suit, understanding the relevance and the significance of that particular occasion. And since I've been elected school board member for District 1, each year I give a different message to each school. So I passed on the opportunity to go down to a central location and give a speech in a studio that was pretty much a one-liner, a speech that was going to speak to all graduates. And I wanted to make it personal, as I always have. And part of that personalization was for me to not go to the studio, but to go to the location. So I had an opportunity to have my team to meet me at each location. And I delivered a different speech at the respective high schools that was tailored to them. So my speech at North Miami was tailored to the pioneers of North Miami Senior High School. My speech to New Orleans Senior High School was tailored to the Vikings. And definitely the Carroll City Chiefs, I had a message that was tailored for them on their location. So I wanted it to be personal. I wanted it to be relevant. And I wanted it to be something that they will recall that their school board member went the extra mile to make this virtual experience and related message special for them.
Can you share anything that you provided to the class? Do you remember?
Yeah, I pretty much remember. You know, one of the things I always try to do is stay consistent with the notion that commencement is not the end, it's the beginning. By the mere definition of the word, commencement means to start anew. So that is a message that resounds every year to the graduating classes that I speak with, because very oftentimes our seniors going through their senior year believe that after prom, related activities, that things are coming to an end. But quite frankly, life is just beginning. Learning is just beginning. Although they're completing their K through 12 experience, they have a lifelong of learning that they have to commit to, and they're going to have some opportunities and some experiences that are going to be fresh, they're going to be new, and they're going to come with obstacles, but also opportunities. And I like to inspire them, to prepare them for the realities that they're going to face. As it relates to the messages being tailored to each school, obviously I try to pull from the theme of the respective classes. The Vikings obviously has a theme. North Miami has a theme, and Carroll City definitely has a theme. So not to let the cat out of the bag, I tried to pick up on the theme of each particular school. And quite frankly, if there were some experiences that they had during the course of the year, I try to draw from that as well to make it
Okay.
personal for them.
Nice, nice, nice. So we've experienced many challenges as we've gone through COVID-19, and Miami-Dade County Public Schools has made adjustments to the way students learn. You've also continued your community feedings, which you started immediately after the hurricane, where you put it before the board that that was something that needed to happen. Do you foresee any type of fundamental changes that you are going to recommend as a result of COVID-19, possibly some learnings that have come out of this situation?
Absolutely. Obviously, there are three iterations to the decisions that we are going to have to make as a local school district. And those decisions are predicated on what happens at the federal level with the CDC, what happens at the state level with the governor and the commissioner of education, and obviously what has to happen at the local level with respect to what is unique to our community. With respect to the feedings, I just want to acknowledge the entire effort of our board for supporting that item that made it a policy position. Our superintendent, our entire team of employees, our cafeteria workers, managers, principals, everyone who leaned into providing. Right now, Jessica, over 1 million meals have been served in the Miami-Dade County community through the Miami-Dade County Public Schools to our children and community at large. So we're very, very proud of that work. And I was very honored that God utilized me as a conduit for that. But lessons learned post-COVID-19 obviously has everything to do with the reality that we've known for a while, and that is that one size does not fit all. Through this particular experiences, we were compelled to lean into innovation. We were compelled to lean into flexibility. We were compelled to lean into providing a heightened level of engagement for parents to tailor learning for their children around their life. And I think this is going to have to be a continuation utilizing technology and other related resources. So some of the things that we're thinking about, obviously, is a blended learning model where we're looking at a blended schedule where students potentially can come in the morning, in the afternoon. Some students can do face-to-face. Some students can continue to do distance learning. But one of the things we want to declare is that we plan on opening schools in August. That is our plan. But I want to juxtapose our declaration that education will be provided with the reality that we're not going to bring that declaration with an imposition. What does that mean? We're declaring our commitment as the fourth largest school district, educating nearly 370,000 plus children, that we are here to serve. We're preparing to work. We're preparing to meet our children and our families where they are based on their needs. But we understand that on the heels of this pandemic, we cannot impose any expectations or any requirements on parents who are not comfortable. So we're going to have a declaration without an imposition. We're here to serve, but we can't say, bring your child to school physically. If you're not comfortable as a parent and you want to explore and continue distance learning, we're prepared to accommodate that. If you're a parent that has to work, you have to work, and you don't have the support for childcare, and you need your children physically in school within the framework of the CDC guidelines for safety and health-related issues, we're preparing for that as well. So again, a declaration that we're going to be open for business, the business of educating our children, but we're mindful that we are not going to move forward with any imposition on parents and families that are not comfortable. We do want to qualify one thing, that although the school year is coming to an end, having been a teacher and a principal and et cetera, we often knew that the end of the year for one period of time marks the start of a new year for another. So we don't really shut down, we ramp up. So although we're going to take a brief respite as the school calendar year has come to an end, quite frankly, we're simultaneously ramping up for summer learning experiences and definitely for the 2021 school year, which is going to be a very exciting time, a challenging time, and quite frankly, a time that is going to require flexibility, innovation, and resilience, of which we plan to bring full speed ahead.
You mentioned a lot in that answer. I'm going to have to take several pieces and for us to kind of dig in just a
Yeah.
little more. But where you ended was on summer. And in a number of the other times that we spoke, we talked a lot about the academic regression that is going to happen during summertime. I read that there are going to also be, in addition to summer sessions, there are possibly going to be virtual tutors, mentors. You're going to identify vulnerable children. What does that rollout look like if it has already been determined? Can you explain that a little further?
Yeah, and I can give a snapshot of that. Obviously, the virtual element is something that is going to be new and nuanced, but it's somewhat a play out of the historical playbook of previous summer school experiences where children have had some academic challenges. They have an opportunity to attend summer school to make those improvements, where students may have failed a course. They have an opportunity to make that course up. We know that many of our students had challenges with distance learning. We're not naive to think that it was utopic, that it was perfect for our teachers, for our students, for our parents. It was not. I said on the show early on, it was a challenge. It still remains a challenge for each and every one of us, and we recognize that. But what we did not want to do and what we committed to do is not to make that challenge an imposition on our children academically. So those students that had a challenge during this particular fragile period of time, with this unprecedented time, we want to give them an opportunity and a platform to remediate academically, to remediate if there was some learning deficiencies that perplex them, but also to remediate and recover, remediate and recover, remediate and recover courses that they may not have been successful in, to matriculate from grade 7 to grade 8, from grade 10 to grade 11, and have an opportunity at the middle school and the high school level to earn those courses and recover those. And again, obviously at the elementary school level to remediate those academic areas in English, language arts, and mathematics specifically as we prepare for next year's assessment, which was suspended this year, but we do anticipate that we're going to have to give an account for student learning next year. We want to make sure that our students are prepared, and where there was some gaps, we can try to close those, and where we definitely anticipate that summer slide, we can try to mitigate and abate it as much as possible.
I want to stay here a little bit longer, just for a second. I remember when I was coming up, I'm gonna tell my age, but in the 70s, you could go to summer school even if you passed, it was an option. And here I've noticed as I'm 50 and got these elementary students, but it's different now. You have to have failed a subject or the grade in order to go back. Is that going to be the same dynamic for this summer? Maybe, there's some parents that think that their kid just needs just a little more intensive learning in a schedule in a subject that they actually passed, but is that an option?
Well, that option that you're describing, and I'll give my age as well. I grew up in the 70s and 80s as well. There was a significantly different paradigm around education, and quite frankly, educational programming and related funding. Educational programming and related funding. So programmings were varied. They were not as focused on accountability standards, good, bad, or indifferent. They weren't. And that's where you had significant issues starting in 1983 with the report that came out, A Nation at Risk, when the Soviets got ahead in the space race, and the United States of America declared that our schools had failed us with respect to national security, that our children weren't prepared in reading, mathematics, and science, and that our schools' failure had now put the nation at risk. That was 1983. You fast forward to some other reforms that came out, No Child Left Behind, which realized that although we had students in schools that were perceived as being high performing, we had pockets of children in those schools that were not performing. So then the paradigm shifted dramatically to targeting those students to close that achievement gap, that nasty, that lingering, that besmirching, that devastating achievement gap that often perplexed Black and poor children. Black and poor children. We can talk about Hispanic children as well, but historically, when the achievement gap analysis was born, it was predicated on the notion that children fell further behind who were Black and who were poor. And very often the poor were Black, so it was a double whammy.
Right.
So to mitigate and close that achievement gap, the nation, to its credit, shifted the paradigm and insisted that a rising tide lifts all boats. So we had to go a little deeper to get those children who were not performing. That's where you start to see the advent of a lot of funding, a lot of targeted areas, and a lot of accountability that said, hey, if you have 100 children in the school and 97 are performing well, your school is an A school or your school is a high performing school. But we say not so fast. We want to know what's happening with those 3 children. If they're Black, if they're poor, if they're special needs, if they're English language learners, that is what we call the subgroups. So that paradigm shift started to look at the underperforming elements in schools because those children were kind of hidden. Those 3 children were hidden amongst the 100 because the 97 did well. We really kind of dismissed the other 3 and just kind of wrote them off. So that paradigm said that our children cannot be cast off of the American dream. They cannot be cast off of educational opportunity. They cannot be cast off of educational equity. So our paradigm, Jessica, has shifted. So we don't have in the state of Florida, because now when your programming changes, when your paradigm changes, that drives your funding. So it does not fund a wholesale program. That being said, there is funding for other iterations of summer programming, and they really speak to internships, great partnership with CareerSource. Shout out to Rick Beasley. Great partnership with him, providing opportunities for children. We have program here in Miami Gardens, internship programs. So we do have acceleration and enrichment programs. The Children's Trust provides a myriad of programs for the summer for children who may or may not be academically fragile, but parents want them to have a different experience. That experience can be in robotics, it could be in the arts, it could be in other things that are enrichment. But the public school system has not become the end all and be all for summer programming for children. And because education is our mission, our focus this year, as historically, is to align the funding with the greatest need. And this summer, we recognize that the greatest need will be on those children who perform at the lowest 25%.
Okay, understood. Reopening of schools, I understand a vast majority of parents who participated in the survey basically said that they just did not feel comfortable. I also understand that there has been a task force that's been put together by district. Can you tell us a little bit more about one of the things that task force has been challenged to do and what you deem will be coming up out of it to assist the board in what Miami-Dade County Public Schools looks like in reopening in the fall?
Yes, the superintendent at a previous board meeting brought to the board the notion and framework for a working group, i.e. a task force, to really take a deeper dive and looking at the elements that are going to be critically important in determining not only if to open schools, but what does that actually look like. The emphasis on this particular working group obviously is dealing with health and safety related issues. So you want definitely individuals who have that background and expertise. I was one of the board members that proffered the notion that we should have representation, because I am a strong advocate to ensure that from Florida City to County Line Road, our voices are heard. And we did agree that each board member, along with the superintendent appointees, will be a part of that working group. My appointee for District 1 is Dr. Linda Brown, the former head of the Black Nurses Association. She's very active in the medical field, very active in the community. So she will be the voice for District 1. Each of my colleagues also has a person that they designated with similar background and experiences. So that working group is going to look at all of these issues, starting again with the health-related issues. What does that look like, from spacing to testing to employees to students to parents to other related protocols, and to subsequently come up with a framework that is unique to Miami-Dade County Public Schools. We do commend the governor and recognize his leadership in terms of his task force, but his task force obviously looked at this issue from a statewide perspective. We have 67 counties, each are unique. The needs in the Miami-Dade County Public Schools are distinct from the needs in Leon County Public Schools. What is needed in Broward and Palm Beach is different than what is needed in Volusia or Hillsborough County. So we recognize that particular uniqueness, And we wanted to lean in that from the perspective of the Miami-Dade County Public Schools and our related community with our diversity, our demographics, but again, with membership from this community that will lend their voice and their expertise in a plan and a framework that will be coupled with what comes down from the federal government, what comes from the state, but in the end, what is relevant and what is unique to Miami-Dade County. And we've seen the governor take that position, even with some of the decisions to reopen parts of the state of Florida. He will provide a framework, but then he will leave some flexibility for local municipalities to make local decisions.
Oh,
we
good.
had that most recently. We've seen that recently, not with just education. That has really been part of the playbook. So when you look at what happened recently, he opened up the state, but he also said that did not include Miami-Dade, Broward, and I think Palm Beach, one of those counties, Palm Beach County. And he left some of that decision making to the local municipalities. So that's where you had some of the issues where Miami-Dade County opened, but the city of Miami didn't. Miami Beach didn't. Miami Gardens opened 3 days later. So that speaks to the need for those who have the highest level of proximity. The rule of proximity. People who are closest to the issue are in the best position to make that decision for that issue. And we've seen that. We obviously saw what happened in Broward, where Broward County decided that something would happen, and Fort Lauderdale decided that it wouldn't. And I think they did get that resolved. Not my business, not my area, but I'm really just speaking to the need for locals to make local decisions.
Okay, so that task force will advise you all.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Because I did hear our superintendent on CNN last week with Aaron, and I honor him with all of his decision making, but then upon further investigation, for me to understand that there is a specific group of people who's going to vet all of these different areas of concern with social distancing, with hygiene, with the teacher ratio, with arrival times, possibly. There's a group of people that are going to actually just dig deep in it and research it. It made me as a parent feel a lot better about not just the welfare of my child and my friends' children, but also the staff and administrators and the teachers who will be put in a precarious situation if it's not necessarily vetted. So
yeah,
I'm glad.
I've been the strongest advocate for task forces since I've gotten on the board. Sometimes to the chagrin of others, because I do believe in inclusion, and I take a page out of Dr. George Kuntz's book of leadership. He would often say, Dr. George Kuntz from down south, our very own, my former principal. He would say leadership, innovation, and creativity are not concentrated in a few, but it's spread far and wide. So as wide and as far as we can go to give other areas of expertise to the table, that's what I always advocate for. I advocated when I proffered the referendum item. I was the first board member to proffer that has now yielded in excess of $800 million in additional revenue. So I was the first board member to do that item, and my item called for a task force. We were not going to talk about teacher salary enhancements without having teachers to the table. We were not going to talk about how that's going to impact the community without having members from the community at the table. So I've always been a staunch advocate of inclusion, of having different and diverse voices. And in this particular case, quite frankly, understanding that we're in the educational business, so we need people who have a medical and health-related background to sit at that table. And yes, definitely the superintendent acknowledges that. He's the leader of the school district, but when it comes to this particular area, it's so complex, and we need people with heightened levels of expertise to give us some sound recommendations. And again, I'm very, very proud to have my representative, Dr. Linda Brown, who has a strong health-related medical background to represent me in District 1.
That's great. Congratulations, Dr. Gallen. As always, we never have enough time. I mean, we can continue. Yes, and no! I had other questions. Yes, but we'll come back. We'll come back. There's more to talk about. I want to thank our guest today, Dr. Steve Gallen, Vice Chair for the Miami-Dade County Public School Board, for taking time out and sitting with us, educating us on where we are right now with distant learning, what the summer looks like, and possibly even the fall, and opening up the school system again. And as always, you can follow The Culture on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are always at The Culture XYZ. I'm your host, Jessica Mockins. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you again, Dr. Gallen, for sitting in with us at this episode.
Jessica and The Culture, thank you so much. Stay safe. Until the next time, looking forward to follow up, and again, commend you for your provision of this platform that is critically important to our community and advancing our culture. Thank you. God bless and stay safe.
Thank you.
The Culture is produced and owned by Hip Rock Star Media and cannot be reproduced or broadcast without written consent by Jessica Garrett Mockins. All rights reserved 2020.